Good. Mayank,
Good
I
morning.
request you
Sir, you
to.
have made it live, sir.
Pardon me?
You made live?
Yeah, it is live now. YouTube link is
Okay.
live now.
Because people are texting me, it is not live.
Yeah,
So we can have a quick check.
yeah, YouTube is just live. I will confirm that again. Yeah, YouTube is live now. Mayank, I request you to.
Sir, you have made it live, sir.
Yeah, I made it live. It is live now. I request Mayank to switch on the video. Okay. I think Saravanan, you can start and let's keep it going.
Okay, sir. Good morning, all. Hope my audio and video is clear.
Yeah, we can see you, Saravanan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Good morning to all. This is Saravanan, part of ICT Academy, handle the academic operations and marketing of ICT Academy. So, on behalf of ICT Academy and UiPath Academic Alliance, I welcome you all for this UiPath Career Webinar Series, the second session which we have hosted. So, we hosted the webinar one last month and we had a good response. And today we are hosting the webinar two on the topic career pathways in automation. On behalf of ICT Academy, I would like to welcome the speakers and the panelists for today's session. Mr. Krishna Subramanian from Amar Raja, Mr. Anand Gurumurthy from Cognizant, and Mr. Mayank from Simplified Next, and Ashley from Intelligent Automation UST. And I would also like to welcome Ms. Subhashri, the Director HR of UiPath, who will be moderating this session, and also Mr. Abhijit Srinivas and Rajesh from UiPath for this webinar too. So, to set the context, the students, this is a seminar which is joined by students from individually and also in the colleges. So, a college may log in one seminar hall, and where there will be more number of students also participating. So we'll come to know at the end of the session. So all these students are predominantly from the pre-final year and final year students studying in a engineering college across India. So we have participation across India from the students. And thank you very much to all the member colleges who have taken their busy schedule. I know after long holidays, it is colleges reopened yesterday, and they've been scheduled tight. So in spite of that, they have allotted 2 hours of their time with the students to make or to hear from all these panelists on the importance of the technology and how you as UiPath and the leaders from industry can support them and shaping their career. So with this small introduction, I hand over the session to Mr. Abhijit sir to take it from you.
So, Shubha, over to you. Please take on. This is now with you. I mean, you can go ahead and start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Saravanan, for setting that wonderful context. And welcome all of you students and others who are logging in live. Great to have you here on a Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. With a set of dignitaries here who will be willing to share with us their experiences and their learning through the automation journey and their careers. Right. I'm hoping that this will be a fruitful session. And if you do have any questions during the session, feel free to write to them on our Q&A panel, and wherever relevant, we'll take those questions, or we will park some time for Q&A towards a later part of the session. If it's relevant in the context, we'll try and cover it during the conversation. I'll moderate it just so that all of you speakers are aware. If it is relevant in the context of the conversation, I'll be one of those questions when we do this. Thank you for that. With that, let's start off with the panelists. I think the first question, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Krishna. You have had an impressive career in the automation industry. Can you share some insights on the diverse career paths that are available in the automation world and how individuals can identify what is right for them?
And good morning to all. So glad to be able to share some of my experiences and probably also learn from your questions because there's always room for learning. To your question, Shri, I think in terms of automation started off, at least in my 30 years experience, it started off as pure computerization, then it became digitization, then we are talking about again automation, and then automation is now becoming cognitive automation, right? Now we are talking about AI. So in a way, it's a full circle, and also it's a continuously expanding thing. And if I look at currently, Amar Raja, as some of you may be aware, we are into multiple businesses, but our primary business is batteries. We are both into lead acid as well as electric batteries. For us, automation actually means anything that helps our business stakeholders, right? The business stakeholders, it could be my colleague working on the factory floor, it could be my colleague working in the finance department or supply chain, right? Anything that allows them to focus on activities which requires variation. If the activity is monotonous, to put it in somewhat crude fashion, but let us say repetitive, right? We believe that people can do much better than that, right? So the diverse careers that are possible, especially for the students who are logged in, you can either become a technologist who is doing the automation. And automation is nowadays scaling from the absolute small thing to a very, very complex thing. Or you could become a domain expert who says that these are all the processes that we think should be automated, right? So two broad streams, technology stream and a domain stream. But in both, I think a key aspect is being able to identify the need for automation, feasibility of automation, executing the automation, right? And UiPath is a platform. In fact, within Amar Raja, we have actually chosen UiPath for our automation. And we have done automation number of things in our finance world, right? For example, where we are talking about reconciliation of invoices received from our vendors, right? Something that takes a lot of effort is absolutely crucial for organization because revenue is revenue. So how do we go about automating it? So to summarize it, I would say opportunities exist in the technology area where you can be the one who is building the automation. Technology exists in the domain area, could be manufacturing in my case, right? But could be in really any industrial domain where you identify the process that could be automated. Third element, which could be even more significant, combining both of this, you could actually become a process expert, right? Completely looking at reinventing the way the processes are executed. So I would say those are my thoughts, Shubhashri.
Wonderful to hear that. And while we talk about these different streams, if you were to throw some light on a certain example of a professional world, right, which could be a career path that some of our future students can pick up.
Right. So I would assume most of them have some kind of a technology background, right? Either in terms of their academic curriculum or something that they are doing outside of that, right? So what needs to happen is first and foremost, I would say you cannot become a domain expert unless you have worked in a particular role for several years. For example, and I will use, I think some of the panel here, right? I think they would have been doing their current role for several years and they understand the nuances. So that helps them identify areas where the tasks could be optimized, right? Either it could be performed faster or it could be performed better. Faster is just a matter of speed so that you go through more tasks. Better is where you can deliver higher outcomes, right? What needs to happen is, first, I think understanding an automation platform, right, is a key. And then for those of you with the interest in becoming technologist, I think your ability to mimic the human behavior, right? And I would say this is probably the lowest end of automation because obviously automation works really well when you improve the processes. But as a first step, if you were to just ensure that the process as it gets executed, right, can be done by a bot, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the term, right? I would say that's the thing. So today we have in our teams, in our IT teams, several automation developers, right? And some of them have started fresh out of college. So we ask them to first understand the process and see how they can script. I'm sure the word has meaning for all of you, to do it. So I would say a bot developer going up all the way up to leading a center of excellence for automation. In Amar Raja, we have it. So a software engineer who develops bots, a software engineer who maintains the bots, we actually call them as digital workers, right? Our team is now comprised of human workers and digital workers. So just like humans need hand holding, right? That's why we have our HR departments, right? So even bots need that. So you can be a bot a developer, maintenance of a bot, leading a COE, automation COE. These are some of the roles that I can think.
Brilliant. So automation really does not take away jobs, but there are enough opportunities that could be created as well. That's the worry sometimes people have, right? Something I would like to turn over some question to Mr. Anand. As an expert in the intelligent automation, could you shed some light on the roles and responsibilities that professionals might?
Sorry, for a few seconds, the line froze. Subhash, can you repeat your question, please?
I can repeat that. Looks like my internet connection is unstable, but yeah, sorry about that. However, the question, Mr. Anand, was as an expert in the intelligent automation space, it'll be great if you could shed some light on the roles and responsibilities that professionals might encounter in the various sectors.
Sure, got it. No, I want to maybe illustrate this with an example that the vast majority of the audience can relate to. Obviously, and I'm addressing this to the audience here, the students. This is very simplistic example, but at least wanted to put in perspective how you think about it, right? See, what happens in the business world, there is continuous flow of information and data. And the data is generated inside an organization or a business and goes out, or sometimes data, or most of the times data is also generated outside the organization and comes in. In the past, systems have been built to manage the record keeping of this data. And that actually meant there is a lot of manual activities involved in recording the data, keying in the data, finding ways to capture it, but fairly manual, right? And that's why you have a significant amount of people working on the business side, not just on the technology side of any organization. So you take a simple example of home experience most of you would have gone through. Like you go to a bank and open an account. So these days it's simple. If you, depending on the bank, you go sit across a counter, you are able to do it. But places you probably fill out an application form. And it's not enough that you fill out an application form. The banker says, no, I need to have some proof of your identity. So you flip out your Aadhaar card, you probably have registered and got a PAN card also by this time. If you have not, you should do it. So you share the PAN card, and then you have mentioned your date of birth in the application, and the banker checks is the date of birth. And in your own world, if application.dob double equals Aadhaar card.dob, then the banker is satisfied, right? And he says, okay, I have verified your data, right? And then he goes through a few more steps. Maybe the account balance you can maintain is low. Maybe he needs some approval from his manager. He talks to the manager, or he sends a request and he gets it approved. And mostly, with most banks, you should be able to get your account active same day, right? That's what happens. And this is what we call as a process in a very, very simplified terms. And obviously, when you go and work in a business and you're all aspiring to be part of big companies and companies that are impacting the world in many ways, these processes keep getting more and more complex and bigger and end up touching so many more organizations and dependencies. So how do you orchestrate the whole thing? That is one aspect of it. How do we ensure that we have visibility to the whole process and we can orchestrate the whole thing for one of you to actually get the bank account activated, to your satisfaction? That's one part of the process. The other part of the process is how do we deal with the data, the capture of the data, and maybe take out the human action required to process the data. So when you give your Aadhaar copy, or maybe a banker is more sophisticated, he has a scanning machine, so he takes a scan of your Aadhaar card. But can you digitize that information using computer vision and pick up that data, and the application that he is working with, the bank KYC app or whatever it is able to immediately then relate, okay, this is the data the consumer keyed in the application, this is the data in the Aadhaar, so it's all matching, or something is not matching and it flags, maybe there is a first name, last name mismatch, and the challenges, and if you have not gone through, there are challenges with maintaining the names and consistency across the various ID proofs and all that, right? So there are a lot of checks and balances that the bank has to do. So we are now talking about, can I introduce a computer vision aspect? Can I introduce an automation to apply the rules of KYC automatically, or apply the rules of processing a bank application automatically? And then can I automatically route a request for approval to my manager, so that the banker doesn't have to walk up to the office, other end of the office, or banker doesn't have to call somebody in another branch or whatever, right? So we're trying to, through automation, remove the friction that exists in the process. By friction, I mean these manual handoffs and dependencies that come in the way, right? So all this story is to tell you, what are we doing with automation? Now I want to answer the question, what sort of career paths you have, right? First of all, maybe I made it look more grisly, but probably the process is much simpler. But then somebody first needs to understand the process functionally. And somebody who is very smart functionally will ask the question, hey, wait a minute, why do I need to submit a Aadhaar copy? You have mechanism to validate my Aadhaar through OTP. You just initiate it, I will get an OTP and it's done and you validate it. I don't even need to give you my copy. And that way I am protecting my own personal data from being misused further, right? So maybe a smart business analyst, that's one of the tracks that you can do. A smart business analyst will say, hey, this is something I can do to improve the process instead of following exactly what you do today. That's one significant career track, right? Like you can continue to evolve functionally and get better at understanding the way the industry works, or a particular company works, or a particular ecosystem works. And as you gain that expertise, you become smarter and smarter, and you can see gaps and inconsistencies and deficiencies that you can eradicate to make the process better in the first place, right? That's one significant track. The other track is, of course, how do you build all this? Maybe there is a banking system, there are third-party software products, Finacle, Temenos, whatever, right? Like maybe the banks are using all this. But then how do I take the data that came from the outside world, your ID proof, and push the data into these systems, right? That's where some automation would be required. So there is a role for a developer to start building these things. And maybe in general, people think UiPath is robotic process automation, but UiPath is also what's called as document understanding. It can digitize data. UiPath also gives you the vision capabilities. UiPath also gives you the orchestration capabilities. So the evolution of the technologies these days is to be able to provide more wholesome business process handling in a low code, no code fashion, right? So that's where this platform is evolving. And there is a whole host of things that you can do in a product like UiPath to build your competencies and actually apply what you learn in your courses in the third year, fourth year, machine learning, computer vision. Maybe some of you have spent time learning agile methodology. So all of that comes together. And there are also components of the software itself, UiPath itself, being hosted on the cloud, being provided as a cloud service. So you need to, as a developer, also appreciate cloud containerization and whatnot, right? So that's another path. And as that evolves, you mature as a developer, right? And maybe 5 years from now, you are not just a developer, you are an architect. You are worried about, okay, I need to process 100,000 applications in a month, and I need to be able to deploy the software in such a fashion that it can scale seamlessly, and everybody gets the same kind of experience that you get with a Google or a Netflix or whatever else you have set yourself, you have set as the benchmark for other companies to follow, right? Because you are the consumers of these service more than anybody else. So that's where you become a technology architect, You bring together your cloud capabilities. You understand how containerization works. You understand how DevOps applies in the context of UiPath, and provide the organization an ability to scale way beyond processing one application manually. So that's the second path. And of course, the third path is, and the panelists and rest of the panelists and I have come through a very long journey already. I think 6-7 years, like Krishna mentioned. There is a whole host of automation that has been built, and each unit of automation is called a bot. There are organizations that are running thousands of bots, and like Krishna mentioned, this is equivalent of another employee working in the company. That means a lot of work has to be managed, a lot of projects have to be delivered. Who is going to do this? There is a project management or a program management career path also for you. And not everybody has the same or similar preference, right? Some of you may say, nothing doing, living, breathing code is my only way. Somebody realized somewhere in your engineering thing, hey, but who is going to make sure all this work is getting done within budget, within the schedule that the business wants to achieve, right? That's the project management path. But the third person is saying, I'm really excited to understand how the whole world comes together and operates functionally, right? That's the functional or the business consultant path that you have. So I think broadly, I would say all these three, and each of these have a relevance in the context of how you work with a technology like UiPath. And you can continue to evolve yourself in this direction. And I have several people in my team who have started their careers as only automation developers or analysts, who have spent last 4 or 5 years, and there is a runway for them to continue to grow in this space. So it's a long answer, but that's where I wanted to leave you with, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions you may have later as well.
Yeah. Given that you shared about the variation and the variety of roles and responsibilities that could be there, how do professionals really determine which sector which will align with them the best in terms of skills and interests?
So I think there is no silver bullet answer to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If I take myself personally, my role today, I'm managing a large team delivering out of India. But at the same time, I've always enjoyed understanding the engineering aspects of the work, and maybe at some point I would still want to go back and do only that sort of work, right? So, but then it's an evolution, and for each one of you listening in, I think you should dabble around and understand what's your strength or what's your liking. And I would say experiment more. Like I said, if you take an automation engagement, there are several roles within that, and say first 2 years of your career, you spend time trying things out, experiencing various roles, and I'm sure you will figure out what is best, what you like the best. Because at the end of the day, it is about whether can you come in, put that entire day's effort with full passion and make a difference, right? And that will happen only if you have figured out for yourself what is best for you. And I would say 80% of the people, 80-90% of the people end up pursuing a technical path. But there is a lot of work to be done in managing these engagements successfully. There is a lot of work to be done in reimagining the way a process works. Those are also interesting areas, but each one is a different mindset. So I would strongly encourage experiment, find out, and the UiPath canvas is broad enough for you to try all these things actually, and see what is your liking as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Anand. I take those 3 key words, right? Experiment, find out, and passion. I think if we look at these 3 things, end of the day, are we going to be happy doing what we are doing? That's where the passion answers. And I'm sure from the conversations so far that we have heard from Krishna and Anand, they're passionate about what they're doing, and hence they're doing what they're doing, right? So that's the key, if I were to put it that way. Turning over the mic to Mayank. Mayank, in your role, you have likely encountered various sectors. Can you throw some light on the specific roles and responsibilities that the automation professional should be aware of in these different sectors that you would have come across?
Okay. Well, firstly, I really like the way Anand explained the different roles, right? I think that's really important to understand what the roles are. Then the next dimension in this automation industry or automation career is the sectors. And frankly, automation is required pretty much across all sectors, right? So we are, I mean, at Simplify Next, we are in Southeast Asia, so Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, all these countries. And I mean, if I will just give a broad, view of how the industries are using it, right? So you have the regulated industries, firstly, right? Within regulated industries, is primarily three. You have the financial services, you have the government, and you have the healthcare, right? So in these three industries, I mean, financial services is probably the one which started the adoption of automation way ahead of time, right? They are very mature. I mean, they're automating a lot of their core banking and financial processes using automation, right? Um, Although having said that, we do see that in some cases they are still doing a lot of traditional automation work. So a lot of new capabilities like combining traditional RPA with AI, ML, doing things like process mining, look at low code apps is an area which they have started to catch up in the last couple of years. But traditionally, they are a lot more evolved and mature around traditional automation, and a lot of focus there is really on doing it really well, right? So they have large COEs and thousands of automations, right? Then you look at public sector, which is the government and the healthcare. It is quite evolved. I mean, it varies country by country. So in some countries, like Singapore, they've done a lot, but in many other countries, they have not done much within the government and public healthcare space, right? Here, there's a lot more focus on things like data sovereignty, things like really strict security requirements and stuff. And so it's a bit of a journey for them and for us as automation practitioners or professionals to understand their requirements, their pain points, and see how we can apply it, right? And then, of course, you have other sectors, right? I mean, enterprise sectors. You have real estate, you have manufacturing, engineering. And these are generally what we see is very keen to explore new capabilities and see how it applies to their business. And in these industries, there is very high focus on ROI, return on investment, right? So it's really important to make sure that, whatever we're doing it for a reason. That reason is to support the business, right? And as both Krishna and Anand mentioned, in here, there's a lot of room to reimagine the processes, right? There is no such thing as that this has been being done like this for the last 10 years, so it must be done exactly like that, right? So there's a lot of room to reimagine, to say, yes, this was a great process when it was largely manual, but now as we put in automation, let's realign the processes, right? And there's also a lot of focus on creating that experience for the employees or customers, right? So basically to humans, because at the end of the day, yes, we automate processes, but you will always have a role for people, right? There is an interaction between the robots and the humans. And that is where this human-robot interaction comes into play. I mean, UiPath as a platform has really evolved. I mean, I have seen UiPath since 2016, 2017, and I would say from 2019, 2020 onwards, it has really started to evolve and really become this end-to-end platform which allows all, takes care of all aspects of automation. And this human-robot interaction is really important. I mean, there's a plethora of low-code apps that are out there as well. I mean, within UiPath as well, plus outside, which can help you to build that engagement layer, right? So that's kind of industry view. And again, it varies country by country. So what I've given you is probably a broad brush in Southeast Asia. So yeah, that's just another spectrum of this industry, which is the industry focus. Yeah.
Interestingly, with the industry focus that you spoke about, are there common skills or competencies that may cut across these sectors, right? And
Yes.
if there are any, could you throw some light on those?
Yeah. So yes, definitely, right? So in every industry, there are certain functions that are more or less common, right? So for example, HR, finance, procurement, legal, IT. Here, the processes are more or less similar across industries. So yes, so there's one element of focusing on an industry, right? So let's say you have worked in automation for 2 to 3 years in banking, right? You would understand a lot of processes, right? And if you're focusing a lot on core processes. But if you were doing a lot of finance HR processes, then those skills are relevant cross industry. So you could go from a banking customer, for example, organization to a to a healthcare or to a real estate, right? The finance processes, whether it's procure to pay, right? Things like accounts payable, accounts receivable, general ledger, these are similar across almost all industries. There may be some nuances which are slightly different, but otherwise it's more or less the same.
Yep. Thank you, Mayank, for that insight. Let me turn over the mic to Ashley now. Ashley, you've been heading the RPA practice in UST Global. How can professionals prepare for the roles that require a deep understanding of RPA and intelligent automation? And what skills are critical for the success in this particular domain?
Hey, hi, thanks, Subhashri. Hello, everyone. Morning, everyone. So, good question. And yeah, that's something which all our students from these different colleges can actually start preparing right away. Well, UiPath is a straightforward tool where you can get into the UiPath Academy and start learning. It's pretty exhaustive, and you can sort of really learn and understand whatever you want from UiPath. But before that, it would always be good if you can sort of prepare for that learning. All right. So having an understanding of programming skills or learning programming languages like, say, for example, VB.NET or C# will help you get prepared for the automation industry in a much better manner. Having an understanding of, say, for example, SQL. All right. So that's basically your understanding databases. Understanding programming concepts, say the different data types or your if-else statements and things like that. So once you learn this, my suggestion would be is once you learn this, then you step into the automation world of learning UiPath. All right. So that will sort of get you industry ready. So one of the biggest challenges that we see when we sort of onboard freshers into the industry is that many of them have not even heard of RPA. Many of them know the word automation, but they really don't know how to go about it. And normally when we say robotic process automation, the thinking is always to do with the actual robotics, with the ones with the arms and legs, right? So learning these things and reading a lot, all right, something that you can actually start doing in your final year is getting into these different communities, listening to more webinars, and reading about automation as such, especially in the IT industry, right? Because you see, all of you know that automation started long time back in the manufacturing industry, right? That is where the real automation started. But it is maybe only in the last few years where this IT boom happened that actual automation started in the IT industry. So these are two different automations that we're speaking about. All right. As far as you students who come from the IT background or from your BTech environment who wants to get into the IT industry, this is a lot of yeah, I mean, this is something that you can do to build up your foundation or to build up your basement.
And with that foundation, it's easy to find options in different sectors, right? And how can these help improve the processes and operations within the various sectors? Throw some light on that.
All right. So automating a process, you can do it using what we call conventional automation. Basically, you can use Java, Python, and programming languages like that to automate. And now you can also use RPA which I would say is sort of godsend for a lot of industries who have been using those old platforms or systems, where you can use RPA for automation. All right. So um, uh, I'm sorry, Subhashri. Could you repeat that question once again?
No, my question was related to given that these various sectors have the different practices, how are these working in the way of helping improving the processes and operations itself in the at the organization level, company level?
Okay, so improving the process and automating the process are two different things. I think it was Krishna who touched upon that subject, because I don't know. I mean, how many of these students have heard about this old adage saying that garbage in, garbage out, right? So when you're automating a process, so first of all, you need to understand what a process is. All right. So just to go back to your college parlance, say suppose you're going in for an admission, you give in an application form, somebody is inputting that application form into a system, and then you get admitted, you get a receipt saying that you're admitted to the college. So that can be defined as a process. All right. So uh, when you automate this process, you can either automate that process as it is, all right, which means it is normally making it faster than what a human being does. The other side is to improve that process. All right. So for that, you really need to question yourself or ask yourself on how can I make this process quicker, or how can I make this process easier? All right. So for that, it would also be good because see, Anand had mentioned about the role called business analyst. All right. So a business analyst is a person who actually looks at this end-to-end process and thinks, okay, how can I make this faster? All right. For that, there are certain tools in the industry. Um, some of you may have heard about this, something called Lean Six Sigma or Six Sigma. All right. So these are tools which actually help make you learn how to identify the different ways in your process. All right. Say, for example, why am I doing these unnecessary steps here? Why can't I just, especially for you, Gen Z and Gen Y people, I mean, with so much of impatience, I think you want to do everything at a click of a button, right? So I think you will find it much easier to improve processes than the Gen X guys. All right. So you have to ask yourself, okay, why am I giving this application time 10 times? Why can't I just give it once, and can't the process get done by itself? All right. So to help you for them, there are certain methodologies in place, and reading that would really help you, where you can understand how to make the process faster. All right. So if you can't be bothered about reading about them, ask yourselves the question every time, how can I make this faster? All right. It's just not about speed. It's about how to take off all those unwanted steps that you normally do. All right. That question itself will make you automate your process quicker or make your process faster. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So in short, automation and the skills related to that can be used towards your convenience and comfort. Look at the ROI, how we can do this. Start thinking in that direction. That's what all of you panelists are sort of guiding all of us towards. And there are tools with UiPath, and that's available in the academic portals where we can go learn and help ourselves. Thank you for those wonderful insights. Now, I'm going to pose this question back to Krishna probably. What key strategies or resources can professionals leverage to navigate their career growth in their ever-evolving automation industry successfully?
Probably the word automation industry could be redundant. I think the question you asked is applicable for all.
Oh.
And I think Anand said it, no cookie cutter approach, right? But especially for those starting in their career, I think you need to spend a lot of time in analysis. I think Ashley, as he was summarizing, was saying that not just the speed, right? How can it be done better, right? The speed and passion of youth leading to impatience is good, because that means that newer ways of solving old problems, right? But it is not going to happen. I mean, if these problems were so simple that somebody had documented the solution, you just have to read it and implement it, I don't even think it's a problem worth solving, right? It will be boring too, right? Especially you mentioned that, we are passionate. I think we are passionate not because we are 100% knowledgeable. We are passionate because we acknowledge we don't know and we are still trying to learn. I think passion is all about that search. So I would say the biggest tool is not a website, not a technology tool. I think the best tool given to us, which is using our brains to analyze. And in the context of automation, I would say it. And let me use an example. The youngest member in my team, he came out of college, I think last year. And basically, to learn the ropes, so to speak, we gave certain bots to him and said that, okay, manage these bots, right? Just ensure that the bots are running as they should do. And a very small question. I think it was probably he asked out of ignorance, but that ignorance pointed out that a lot of us were really ignorant about it, right? What he was saying was that the bot is running and it could be running at midnight. It could be running 24/7, right? Unlike humans, there is no need for a rest for the bot. So we have an ERP system. So one wrong entry into the ERP means the entire process mistakes could cascade down to literally to our customers, everybody. It was a small point about a control, and that made us realize that we didn't have a control. And the best tool that guy used was observed, analyzed, and even better, asked a question. Okay. I think I would rate that as the best tool. Second is, I think for those starting immediately, picking up process knowledge could take time, and that's more a function of your interest, right? Not really that anybody who is young will not be able to understand the complexity. If people spend time, they can. But I think spending time on the technology tools. I sit on this side of the table in terms of consumption of IT services, right? And I see that a lot of misses happen due to not understanding is one, but not utilizing the tool well. For example, UiPath, I think somebody was talking about orchestration. How do you orchestrate these bots? I'm sure most of you would have come across the term attended and unattended bots, right? And you heard the term ROI, right? So how do you ensure that when you are, and it costs money, guys, automation is not cheap anywhere, right? So automation costs money. So how do you ensure that the technology is being used well to deliver, right? So looking at the aspects of process, looking at the aspects of technology, the skill set required, I would say pick up a tool and really understand it well. Because once you understand one tool, you will be able to compare, right? But you need to get to that level of expertise. And it's a constant learning exercise. Learning is not going to end at the end of a course, right? I'm sure I'm speaking for Anand, Mayank, and Ashley, where each one of us is spending where we can. And unfortunately, for most of us, it's probably the weekend. We are spending time learning, learning new tools out there. For example, when UiPath came to us and said, this is it, we had to spend time learning the tool. Otherwise, I couldn't have given a go ahead saying that, yes, let's use UiPath, right? Or any tool, right? So that continuous learning. So please spend time on analysis, spend time on learning a tool, spend time on constantly picking knowledge. And there is no clear path saying that unlike your academic stream or any training course, nobody is going to give a course material and say, this is what you have to learn. It's a lot of, you have to go into a lot of bylanes and then figure out how to come back to the mainstream. So I would say these are the primary tools. Probably I was a bit philosophical when I said a lot of tools are internal, but that seems to be the case most of the times.
Interesting. You threw some light on continuous learning as an important aspect of it. right? And that makes a successful career, not only in automation, but anywhere that we go. Anand, if you have any recommendations that you would like to share with the group here.
Sure, no, I will. But I also want to emphasize what Krishna said to this audience again. Your mantra once you enter the industry has to be learn, apply, repeat. I repeat, learn, apply, repeat, right? So you are never going to be at a state where you have learned and you can take things forward, simply because the pace of change of technology is so much these days, and the innovation is so much these days. What you learn today, what you know today, is not going to be sufficient to, sustain you. I would say when I started my career, I could say 5 years, 6 years. Probably you're talking about 2 years, 3 years in your career. So you have to keep learning. That's the only way to stay relevant. Not just automation, any area of work that you do, simply because the kinds of technologies that have happened, and the kind of speed at which computing has become cheaper has disrupted every industry. So there was also a question earlier about which sector is good. Yeah, mindset is absolutely right. Financial services, always a forerunner. But today there is no industry that is not touched by things that are happening today. Automation is prevalent everywhere. So your option is to continue to learn, apply, and seek more learning. Continuous learning is the way. OEMs certifications are very good. They give you a very structured starting point, and UiPath has a ton of certifications. You can follow that. You can get that baseline understanding, but that will not be sufficient. So you have to learn a lot on the job. I would say do two things additionally, and this might be a bit of a challenge for people who are not necessarily out and about, right? But seek out mentors. There are people who have done better, come through this path, know a trick or two, how to navigate, what to look for, right? They teach you how to look out to the horizon and understand what changes are coming up, and therefore where you need to upskill yourself. So seek out mentors. Don't wait for somebody to come and pick you up. Yeah, things will happen, miracles will happen, but I think you should seek out mentors as well. Please also observe the people who are successful in producing good results. So maybe there is a way they do things, the way they understand and absorb technology and apply back to their areas of work, or for that matter, any function. And that might give you cues and patterns on what works in your organization, what works in your industry, and therefore what more skilling you have to do. So I would say broadly think of it as 20% structured certification, training courses and all, right? But 80% is probably going to be on the job, figuring out what is the right thing to do. And I think your thought process has to be, churning all the time for you to be able to figure out what is the best way to learn. And you have to really absorb this point, because academia lags industry simply because of the pace of change in the industry. Not that the academia cannot do things right. They give you all the right foundations, but the pace of change is so much. There is always a gap in terms of what you learn in the college and where you apply it, what you get to apply at work. For example, a very basic thing like agile methodology, some of you might have learned, most of you might not have learned, but it's a given today. All the work in the industry, unless the company is really, really carrying a lot of legacy, is all agile ways of working, right? So if you go into a company like that, and if you don't understand what's a stand-up meeting, what's a scrum call, and what's impediment, so you will be sort of fighting against the tide. The sooner you accept there is more to be learned on the job and continue to strive for it, I think it's better for you. And you do that for 2-3 years, you then have an instinct for what to look out for, and take it forward. So continuous learning, certification, structured learning is a must. It's a foundation, but continue to improvise on the job.
Thank you, Anand. That was interesting. Continuous learning. Beyond that, you also spoke about mentoring and having a community of your own and building your network. Mayank, if you could throw some light on how could one build a professional network and a community to learn some of these things, right? Formally,
Yep.
informally. If there are tricks that we can share with the people out here.
Sure. No, yeah, I mean, definitely. So I think one of the things that Anand just shared is you mentioned seek out mentors, right? And I think that's where the community helps. I mean, the good thing for example, with UiPath is it has one of the excellent communities within the automation ecosystem, right? I mean, a lot of community leaders are very active. So do connect. I mean, if UiPath is something, I mean, if automation is something you like, I think you should look at UiPath, join the UiPath community. There are a lot of activities happening, especially once you start working. There are definitely a lot of activities for you to do outside of your normal work. I think even for students, there's a lot of like hackathons and trainings being organized. So if again automation is something you like, to go and participate in these things, right? That's how you start to build your network. And it's really important to build your network is because I mean I always tell people, right, there are three dimensions to work, right? The first dimension is the technology, right? I think we have all spoken about the technology. And I just wanted to say one thing which is not related to this question is with generative AI coming in, frankly, the basics of programming or basics of automation is something that will be automated pretty soon, right? So a lot of people who just learn it once and just keep doing the basic at the scratching the surface. I think most of those jobs would be automated in probably a year's time, right? So don't do that. So one area is technology. So really focus on technology, continuous learning. The second area is the functional side of things, which is how do your problem solving skills, analyzing the processes, improving them. Maybe learn a bit of Lean Six Sigma if you need to. Otherwise, a lot of this is a lot of common sense and a lot of applying, right? Observing and applying. And the third aspect really is the people side of things. So independent of which industry you are in, we deal with people, right? People above us, people with us, our peers, or people who work for us, right? Or our customers, right? Or our suppliers. So there are people, there are 360 degrees around us, there are people, right? So how do you engage with people is a key aspect of, whether you can have a successful career or not, right? And that's where networking really helps. And networking is not about how many people I have on my LinkedIn. Frankly, really, that is not a a metric. Yes, once you have a good network, you will obviously have people on LinkedIn. But it's really about connecting with people, learning from people. Everybody you meet and you speak to, you learn something, right? I mean, and today, just by attending this session, I have learned things that I didn't know before, for example, right? So I think that's the key aspect of networking. And networking is not just always getting something. Networking is also about giving, right? So you give, you take, right? It's an ecosystem, right? So to do that, in whichever, it doesn't matter whether you're a student or you're a fresher, join the community, join the network. You give something to the community and you'll get a lot more. Yeah. So yeah, that's that's what I want to talk about. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayank, for that interesting insight, right? I mean, you also stressed upon networking not only with the industry professionals, also with peer group, and give and take as a key aspect of it. And that's how one can learn and grow in their journey. Turning over to Ashley, are there any specific experiences or stories that you'd like to share, highlighting the importance of adaptability in this ever-changing evolving industry?
Oh my gosh. I'm sure all these panelists have only adapted during the last 20-25 years, right?
And more so during the COVID times. In the last 3 years, I think we've adapted so much so today, right?
Exactly. So um, see, just like continuous learning, and as the old saying goes, the only constant is change. All right, because say you start, I mean, 20 years back or maybe 30 years back when we started with COBOL, it is not to be seen anywhere here now, right? So same thing with anything. So until and unless you're completely flexible and adaptable to the changing world, you will be left behind. All right, it is as simple as that. Because just like someone was saying, when you start your journey, nobody gives you a curriculum saying that, look, this is what you need to learn every 6 months, and after 5 years, this is where you will be. That never happens, right? Once you get into your first job, you always need to keep your eyes and ears open to understand what is happening around you in the industry, and we need to immediately start embarking on that journey. Say if the saying Gen AI is the next best thing to do, yes, you really need to start learning what Gen AI is and where it can be applied in your surrounding, right? Same way, okay, what are the different applications where Python can be used or where can Java be used? But having spoken about Gen AI, the only advice or suggestion I have to give the students here is, see, there is no shortcut to success. All right, because I know for a fact that there are several freshers who search for codes using Gen AI. All right, because it is easily available. All right, but please do not take that shortcut, at least in your initial years, because there is, I mean, hard work is everything. You need to learn the basics. You need to be completely strong in your fundamentals. Only if you're strong in your fundamentals will you even be able to adapt. All right, because see, when a new technology comes into the field, if you really want to learn that, you need to know your fundamentals. You need to know your basics. See, even if you take UiPath, see how it has evolved. Because during the 2016-17s, when we started off with UiPath, it was clearly called RPA. All right. But now we don't hear the term RPA, we hear the term intelligent automation. Why? Because UiPath also has evolved. It has brought in a lot of new tools like, say, communication mining, data understanding, or computer vision, and things like that. Now, if I need to understand the technology, need to have my fundamentals right. I need to have my basics right? So, adaptability is very simple. If you do not adapt, you will you will become extinct. Correct. It's as simple as that. So the moment you start your journey, you need to be one step ahead of what is happening around you. And for that, your only way is to keep yourself updated through these different forums. So you have forums, you have webinars, you have communities, and of course, you have your networking also. So all these aspects are important. And the only flexibility you will get here is, okay, if you are a hardcore passionate person who just loves code, yeah, maybe you will get into the technical stream. But if you're a person who is, well, is sort of okay with code but he is not too passionate about it, yes, he is also has another stream in the management stream. That's the only flexibility you get. But how you manage people, how you manage your work, all this has to be with your flexibility, which is actually another word of adaptability, right? Just like when COVID came, what industry thought was never going to happen for 2 years, right? We all sat at home and worked. All right, and now we are all finding it difficult to go back to office. All right. So so yes, that is adaptability, because we find new ways of how we can utilize the opportunity. Correct. So that is adaptability. That's how every company also advances themselves. Another word for adaptability is innovation. All right. How do you innovate? Basically, how do you actually utilize that opportunity, innovate, and get into that space? All right. That is something that every student has to be open to. And I think even for the panelists here, we might have another maybe 5-10 years before we sort of retire. And I really don't know what change that is going to bring us. And I'm sure that it will be much more challenging than what these students find in the coming years.
Thank you, Ashley. While we're talking about the adaptability and the learning, there is a question on our Q&A panel, right, that has come to the panel, where if you can throw some light on some of the courses that we could leverage from, if you have any recommendation. This question is for all the panelists. Anything that you suggest from a courses point of view?
So I'll take it first, and I'm actually not going to give the specific course names. And the reason for that is 15 years back, getting information was very difficult. Okay. And I say to probably all the kids that I come across, information is available at fingertips. Guys, the problem is not about which course to take. Probably one course could be same as good as others. It's all your applicability. What you really need to figure out is what you want to do. And that's why I said that taking a course could be easy, right? I'm sure each one of us can rattle off at least 4 or 5 courses, but that doesn't help you. That is information that you can find out easily, right? But whichever course you take, and for those of you, I'm assuming all of you are going to get into that development mode, right? Ensure to write a lot of code. I think Ashley was talking about do not ever copy code. Probably considering our age, we didn't have that luxury at all. And I use luxury within quotes. But what happens is, and I'll tell you, when I started writing code, I used to write it in Notepad. Okay. The IDEs, as you call, where doesn't even exist. So if I made a mistake, the only time I would know it is when the code compiles and I finally get an output. The advantage of this mode is that I really understood what I'm writing. So that at a later point of my career, when I was given requirements, so to speak, right, I had to focus purely on understanding what the person is saying. The ability to write code was ingrained, right? It's like most of you would be driving, I'm sure, 2-wheelers and 4-wheelers. You no longer need to focus on it, right? You need to focus on something else, the code. So to coming back to it, there are a number of courses, right? And today, some of these training courses seem to come at the price of a movie ticket, right? So I don't think the problem is that. For example, when I had to write a piece of a code and I needed test data, I had to scrounge around. Today, I can get a cloud account, right? Whether it's Azure or AWS or GCP for less than 1,000 rupees. I can download about 10 terabytes of data, which could be a World Bank data on, let's say, polio data. I can actually build a mathematical model. Just getting these basics were very difficult 15, 20 years back, right? Today, the tools for you to write code, the data to test your code is so easily available. Guys, figure out a way to get to that and create those projects. Today, I mean, you don't even need to pay for it. I think YouTube has got tons of videos on all of this, where so many good people take the effort of sharing their knowledge. But all of that is useless unless you write a piece of a code, test it, right? So I would say figure out more on that. Courses information. In fact, I would say probably you guys are far more capable on quickly searching internet and getting the information, right? So I would leave it at that.
Thank you, Krishna. While we hear from the others, people on the call, if you would like to have any questions, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them on the chat. Let me turn over the mic to Anand, probably. Any courses that you would want to suggest to the audience?
Yeah, no, I think similar to what Krishna said, I think first of all, guys, if you're interested in an automation career, there's again a ton of courses available with UiPath themselves, and that's a great starting point, well curated, and you will get a solid understanding. One thing to keep in mind, the software development paradigm has changed significantly, or I should say transformed in the last few years. And like I said, you would have gone through your academics, learning software engineering, Roger Pressman, spiral method, waterfall. Wow, you come out, world is doing agile. Then you're doing, okay, what is it? Client server technology, how does it work? Inter-process communication. And you come out, world is working on cloud native technology. What is this all about, right? That programming paradigm has changed for you. It's everything microservices, APIs. You assemble applications these days. You no longer build applications these days. You don't buy licenses, you buy subscription. The whole development paradigm or the methodology of how you think of standing up a capability for a business to operate has changed. And you don't see this so much explicitly because there is already a lot of legacy estate to manage. But for sure, things are moving in a direction that is fundamentally different from the way uh, someone like me used to build applications in the past, right? So low code, no code is a given. Maturity of low code, no code is really getting better and better by the day. So that's why platforms like UiPath or some of the other competing platforms provide you a whole host of capability where you can assemble stuff very fast. I think Mike made a point about you're no longer going to be worried about writing code. There's already automation to write the code. So all that is happening. So it's about you thinking what's the best way to assemble a set of services publicly available or subscription based so that you can deliver maximum value to the business that you are serving, right? So this is, I think, the biggest adaptation I feel you will have to do in the first year of your joining the workforce, because what you learned may not be sufficient, and I suspect many of these things might not have been covered in your academics or in your trainings and all. Maybe if you got lucky, did some internships in some of these companies which are already ingrained in this type of execution, great, that's a jump start for you. If not, I think you should spend time understand how cloud works and what's cloud native, what is microservices, what's a marketplace for microservices, how do you bring things together. I think that's going to be foundational for you to execute your roles as a developer and an architect next anywhere between 5 to 10 years in your career.
Great. Mayank, let me turn over this question to you. There's another question on the chat where they're asking, what are the different types of AI that one should familiarize with?
Oh. Okay. So I think I'll just tell you, I mean, AI is a huge area, right? It's a huge domain. And don't worry so much about how many different types of AIs and what do I do, what do I look at. I mean, generally these days there are two terms that are being used very commonly. There's something called generative AI and specialized AI. Yeah. So I mean, generative AI is basically something which is more generic, as the name suggests. Here, you have all these LLMs, large language models, and they are for different purposes, right? You have one for text, you have one for images, and then of course you have multimodal and so on and so forth, right? Here, you're not really, I mean, these have been trained on large amounts of data, right? General data, from all sorts of life, right? And in most cases, they work, right? So depending on whatever your problem statement is, whatever you're trying to solve, there's a high chance that one of these things will work, right? But will they always work? No, right? And there'll be specialized, specific examples where it may not just work. And I'll give you an example, right? I think earlier we spoke about things like document processing, right? So you have a invoice, right? Previously, there are certain AI machine learning models that are built that are specifically trained for a specific type of document, right? So you have one for reading invoices, you have another one for reading, identity documents like passports, driving license, you have another for another one, right? Now, frankly, I mean, you can test it out yourself, right? You can just give either to ChatGPT or programmatically to Azure OpenAI or something. Any type of document, it will classify for you, it will read them for you, right? And if you go to LinkedIn, a lot of people have done these nice little videos, and actually they work, right? But if you were to apply them in a real business, they would fail, many of them, right? And why they would fail is because, yes, generally to test out it works, and sometimes if it doesn't work, you will throw away that document and you'll pick something which works, right? Because you want to create a nice video. And that's where specialized AI comes in. Specialized AI, it is specifically, the model that you've chosen, and then the training documents that you use are for a specific use case, right? So these are two good examples. And again, depending on your use case, you might use one or the other, right? In some cases, you are like, your time to market is more important than achieving the 95 or 96% accuracy, right? You're like, I can live with 80%, right? And have a human in the loop to do the rest. But in certain examples, you're like, it's okay, I can wait for 3 months and I want something which is really high accuracy. So these are two examples. But again, deep within AI, it's a huge area. So, I mean, I would like what, earlier, there are different kinds of courses. So most people that, come to me, I tell them there are three specific courses if you want to do a career in automation. Three specific courses that you should do. I mean, UiPath, for example, you go to UiPath Academy. There are a couple of developer courses. I think it's called Foundation and Advanced, and there's a business analyst course. So do these three courses on UiPath website, UiPath Academy. These are very good to get you up and running when it comes to automation. Give you all the introductory details about it. Then the other one is really, you pick either Azure or AWS and do their foundational course. It's an introduction course which gives you a bit of background about all the different cloud technologies, the terminologies, right? Those things are important for you to know, right? I mean, I'm saying you do Azure or AWS, you can do on Google as well. Just pick one and do, right? But do a foundational one. And all these three also have a foundational course on AI. So with these three things, right? Foundational course on cloud, foundational course on AI, and the three courses that I mentioned on UiPath. You do that, whether you're a student applying for jobs or you're a fresher, these things will be helpful for you in your first year. Yeah. So yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you, Mayank, for that insight. There's another question on the panel, for the panel. Which language is the easiest programming language which can help in our career?
Okay. So, I mean, I don't know if there is an answer to that, whether there is an easy language or whether it is a difficult language. I think it's more to do with what is the requirement in the industry, right? And I think in today's world, I would say Python and Java are the most sought after programming languages. And then, yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants to add something.
Yeah, I was just typing in the chat, English. No, really. With the generative AI coming in, right? It's all about typing your prompts. Actually, frankly, not even English, in whichever language you want, right? It doesn't matter. And yes, Python generally is useful across the board. And you learn one, and typically it kind of gives you the logical understanding, the analytical thinking on how do you structure your code, how do you convert a physical problem into a mathematical model, and then use programming to automate it. So that is good, but otherwise it's really about understanding. It's about applying. Those things are more important than actual programming language.
I would about today you would be hearing terms like front-end developer, back-end developer, full stack developer, right? This is where being early in the industry also helps, I guess. I remember when I started my career, I was the requirements engineer, I was the designer, I was the coder, I was the tester, I was the one who put it into production. But what it really means is that when you get to have that end-to-end view of software, remember, we are not writing software for ourselves, right? It's always being written to solve a problem. So whichever software you start with, I don't think that will make too much of a difference. Obviously, as Ashley said, Java, Python, could be .NET. Pick one and really become knowledgeable in that, right? Learn how to create services-based applications, because today nobody wants to create any monolithic application, huge application, right? Learn how to write microservices, learn how to deploy your code in cloud environment, right? Learn how to, and many of you, I think at least some of the questions I saw in terms of AI, all of that, right? So you need to know about machine learning, the different algorithms, right? And as you learn more, initially it will be all theoretic, right? But when you start applying it, you'll realize that certain algorithms are better than something else. So do that. And I think what mindset, in a way, learn English or whichever language. Surprisingly, a lot of people in industry who grow are not necessarily only people who can write good code. They are people who can understand what is being told to them, right? Because the guys talking to you would not be necessarily information technology guys.
Yeah.
Right? Today in Amar Raja, I'm talking to manufacturing guys. They couldn't care less about software. Software to them is a tool, right? They have no great respect for software. Okay. I mean, they see it in their phones, right? So they don't care about all the fancy things that I talk about. Can I understand what they are saying, right? So pick up a language, get good knowledge, right? And I think AI, in fact, somebody was asking a question, how does AI help business, right? Simple. And this is where my point about understanding. I can talk endlessly about AI in terms of the models, okay, the algorithms and all. Who cares? What my sales team expects is they have got tons and tons of written emails. Nobody has the patience to read it. Can I extract it and give them some meaningful intelligence so that they can go and talk to a customer and get the business? They don't even care about the term AI, right? So, how AI helps businesses? Typically, information is in structured format, right? You guys will not need database. Unstructured data, how well we can use it, right? Today, most of you would be using Google Lens, I think, on your phone. You take a picture, automatically it tells you what that picture is all about. Imagine in the absence of that, you wouldn't have had to think of thousands of words to describe that, right? For example, my wife actually takes picture of a plant that she sees on the road. Immediately, she gets all the details.
Yeah.
Imagine the power of AI, right? As simple as that, guys. So AI helps a lot. So learn about that, but it's not going to be easy, guys. It's a tough one. I would rather say pick up first a programming language, a platform, understand cloud well. Today expectation is while it's not necessary that every application has to go on cloud provides a good base for applications which requires enormous amounts of data, right? So learn that, and I don't think you will go wrong.
I think another interesting question that has come up into the panel is for people with a certain years of experience, at least about 2 years of experience in UiPath very specifically, are there any added technologies that can be learned for the future along with complementing the UiPath?
I don't know if that question was asked with keeping only the RPA piece in mind. The UiPath itself is fairly comprehensive, right? There is a full stack of
Yes.
capabilities that you can learn in UiPath. Maybe if you're, and from the question, I'm assuming it's a practitioner's question. So probably beyond RPA, you can learn a lot around AI ML capabilities available in the platform. There is a lot of capabilities that has come up in process mining, and we are always looking for ways to bring the product and the product's capabilities together with other capabilities that are relevant to the business. So how can we make UiPath talk better with, say, an OpenAI API available? Or how can I make UiPath orchestration tap into a model I've tuned on, say, a Llama 2, so that you can use that, for example, a text summarization to be passed on to a business user who is looking to get an abstract of a document, for example, right? So there are many ways you can do that. I think the direction of the industry will be AI infused automation, and what that means, I think everybody is also trying to interpret and provide their own ways and definitions of how they will make use of it in the product. So do that broad-based learning. I think it will be good for you. And mine did emphasize on the cloud platforms. Learn the cloud platforms along with the UI. I think you will stand to benefit immensely, because that's how things will be done in the future, and applications will be automated, assembled, intelligent because of the AI. So how you as a developer can be full stack on the automation world is as much important as being a full stack developer on the application world as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Anand. I think with that, we have mostly covered all the questions that have come on the chat, and we're also close to the time. With that, I wish you all a great day ahead. Thank you so much for your wonderful insights. Before closing, there's one last question that did come up, which says, if I've been working as a UiPath developer for the last 5 years, what could be my next career steps that I could consider? Could it be solution architect or some other position in UiPath? I would leave it for the people here to think through. Yes, Anand, if you have any insights.
No, I mean it's really up to the individual, right? It's very tough to say. This is like the scene in Alice in Wonderland book. Alice is standing in front of the Cheshire Cat and asking, which way do I go? And the cat says, it depends on where you want to go, right?
Yes.
And she says, I don't know where to go. Then the cat says, it doesn't matter then which way you go, right? So it's more like it's more like that. So do you have a passion to be a technologist? Continue to evolve in that direction. Do you have passion to be a business leader? Then you continue to evolve in that direction. I think Krishna gave some great insights about how the business thinks about it. How do you deliver value? End of the day, the business appreciates people who deliver value that improves the top line or the bottom line or the customer satisfaction of the business, right? So that's another direction you can take, because 5 years is enough time to really understand how the whole thing works and what buttons you can push to maximize the benefit. So I can be a Cheshire Cat, but you have to ask a better question than Alice.
Thank you. I think career is in your own hands, guys. You have to decide what you want. Somebody can help you, give guidance, support you, ideas, thoughts, suggestions, yes. But it's ultimately what you want to do and what you aspire to be doing in your future career. Prep towards that, work towards that. That's all I would say. Being an HR professional at UiPath, it very clearly says, as long as you're passionate and you want to be doing what you want to do, are you happy doing what you want to do? That's more important to all of us. I think end of the day, are we satisfied with what we are doing? That should be driving the responses to questions that you spoke about, right? Solution architect or some other career and whatever that works your way. Great. With that, I will close
No, one last thing I want to say, whatever be the path you take, whatever be the learning you go through, I think the opportunity in front of you guys is a lot more phenomenal and large than what we have come through.
Yeah.
The kinds of changes happening and the way things are evolving. So grab it with both your arms, put in that energy, passion, learn a lot, continuously learn. I think you guys are in for a couple of decades of growth way beyond what we call as the IT industry in the country today. So please make best use of it, and all the very best for that rewarding journey that you all will be going through.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Wishing all the students the very best, and nice speaking to all of you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.